are grateful for the courtesy extended to all the participants. As we commence the 41st extraordinary session of the IGAD Assembly of Heads of State and Government, it is essential to outline the program for our deliberation. The session will be divided into two parts, the open session and the closed session. The open session, where all invited participants, including members of media, are encouraged to actively participate. The closed session is restricted to the heads of member states, delegation, plus 4 designated representatives. During the closed session, we anticipate focused discussion on critical matters of regional significance. Hence, partners, invited dignitaries, and media representatives will gracefully exit the meeting room in adherence to the established protocol. We request protocol and security to guide. Before I conclude, I want to express my appreciation for the dedicated work of His Excellency Dr. Wokne Gebeyehu, the Executive Secretary of IGAD, his outstanding leadership in consultation with the IGAD Chairman and the Government of Djibouti, which has been instrumental in propelling the organization forward. In light of the proceeding ahead, I would now like to invite His Excellency Dr. Wokne Gebeyehu, the IGAD Executive Secretary, to continue with the remainder of the program. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Your Excellency Ismail Omar Gille, President of the Republic of Djibouti, Chair and host of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development IGAD, and member of the IGAD. Your Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Your Excellency Abdullah Al-Burhan, President of the Transitional Sovereign Council of the Republic of Sudan, Your Excellency Ambassador James Morgan, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, representing His Excellency President of the Republic of South Sudan, Honorable Vincent Bomulungi Sempaja, Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, representing His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, Ambassadors, delegates, all protocol is observed. It is with great honor and a deep sense of responsibility that as your Executive Secretary of IGAD, I welcome Your Excellencies to the 41st Extraordinary Assembly of IGAD Heads of State and Government. As we convene, Your Excellencies, in unity and solidarity, in support of our IGAD family members in the Republic of Sudan, the challenges they are facing demand our collective wisdom, commitment, and concrete action. Our region stands at a critical juncture, with ongoing conflict in Sudan casting a shadow over the aspiration of a peaceful and prosperous, the greater hope that has been of Africa. Your Excellencies, today I wish to draw your attention optimism to the recent partial agreement reached during the Jeddah talks, which made a significant step forward in setting the issue of humanitarian access. This agreement, while commendable, now requires your leadership, our urgent attention and effective implementation to alleviate the imminent suffering endured by our brothers and sisters in the Republic of Sudan. Our fellow citizens in the Republic of Sudan continue bearing the burden of this protracted conflict. And it is our moral duty, Your Excellencies, to expedite the implementation of the partial resolution of the Jeddah Agreement, which has been co-facilitated by IGAD under your leadership, Your Excellencies. The agreement on the humanitarian access is a lifeline for urgently needed assistance to reach those in desperate need. And we must ensure that the promises made translated into tangible relief on the ground. IGAD is committed, Your Excellencies, under the leadership of His Excellency President Ismail Gele and the leaders of the member states, to appeal to all Your Excellencies to mobilize full political and diplomatic support regionally, continentally, and globally. For IGAD as your organization, not only to assert our service as a peacemakers in our region overall, but also responsibly and specifically discharge our critical role in delivering a peaceful resolution to the hostilities in the Republic of Sudan. Peaceful and respectful dialogue remains the cornerstone of our approach, and it is through sustained efforts the direction that we can pave the way for lasting peace. We must insist on the immediate establishment of the ceasefire agreement, silencing the guns that have weakened havoc on the lives of innocent civilians, our brothers and sisters in the Republic of Sudan. The IGAD family must stand united. It is a determination to bring about cessation of hostilities, allowing for the space and conditions necessary for comprehensive and inclusive dialogue. Only through dialogue, Your Excellencies, can we address, as IGAD, we did a lot of things on this area, and this is only the way to resolve the root cause of the conflict, build trust among the parties involved, and chart a course towards a sustainable peace that respects the dignity and right of all Sudanese people. As I conclude, Your Excellencies, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, our IGAD for dedicating your valuable time and attention to this great matter at hand. Your presence here underscores the unwavering commitment of the IGAD family to the principle of solidarity and collaboration. Last but not least, I convey my deepest appreciation on behalf of the IGAD Secretariat and the people of the region to our chair, His Excellency President Ismail Omar Gille, and the people of the Republic of Djibouti for gracious and generous hosting this very, very important summit meeting. Together, let us work tirelessly to bring hope and alleviate the agony of our brothers and sisters, and reaffirm our shared vision of a peaceful and prosperous Horn of Africa. I thank you very much, Excellencies.
Thank you. Now, I will invite AU Mr. Musafaki to deliver his speech.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellency Ismail Omar Gele, witnessed the positive results obtained at that time by the African Union, supported by Ethiopia. Together, we managed to put in place a balanced consensual transition which got underway and achieved, let us admit it, good results. The current disaster has highlighted the remarkable achievement made in 2019. When we compare the current devastation with the recovery ushered in 2019, the coup d'etat of 25 October 2021 violently interrupted this happy transitional process. Faithful to the principle of the African Union, the peace and security of the African Union, some of whose members are among you, suspended the Sudan until constitutional order is restored. During the many visits I made to the country, I never stopped calling upon the chairman of the Sovereign Council and his vice chairman at war today to take a step in the right direction. Just one, with a view to meeting this in the right direction, just one step, with a view to meeting this exigency by appointing a concessional civilian government to make it possible for the extension of the conflict of the African Union. Unfortunately, nothing was done there. In the meantime, we made tireless efforts with IGAD and the United Nations to promote political dialogue to put the democratic transition back on track. We have made enormous progress in this direction. I talked with both leading protagonists to convince them about the need for an affirmative and helpful action, but unfortunately, the war broke out with all the attendant sad consequences of loss of human lives and damage and destruction of the country. Following the outbreak of hostilities, we called for a high-level international conference to unite the international community on the triptych of cessation of hostilities, opening of humanitarian corridors, and initiation of a political dialogue between the Sudanese themselves, with the support of the international community. That we have brought together with the expanded mechanism and its core group. Since then, we have set up a joint structure with IGAD, which has worked tirelessly on the development of a political and the social mapping of the Sudan and the determination of the sequences of the said dialogue. It continues actively to exchange views with all the Sudanese civil and military actors, with a view to overcoming the last obstacle to the convening of the political dialogue. Two phenomena now trigger the urgent need to convene this necessary political dialogue. The significant process made in bringing together the political forces in dispersed countries and the limits reached by the Jeddah process. This situation deepens our conviction, established from day one, that this African crisis can only find a solution within the African framework. Everything now indicates that we no longer have any reason not to revitalize the joint AU-IGAD roadmap for a ceasefire at the organization of the political dialogue, on which our joint team is working tirelessly and for which it has worked out the essential preparatory elements. Obviously, some aspects require more consultations with the Sudanese stakeholders. They concern the participation of the military components in the political dialogue, the representation of the provinces, and the participation of some groups, those of the former regime in particular. Excellencies, the multiplicity of parallel initiatives is a negative factor in the sense that they often constitute a complication rather than facilitate a solution. I therefore urge you to oppose it and to solemnly proclaim our commitment to the joint IGAD-AU action supported by the expanded mechanism and its core group, which brings together all the neighboring countries of the Sudan and the whole international community. During my several contacts with the Sudanese parties, I sensed their general acceptance of the legitimacy of the joint IGAD-AU team. It has the support of the international community. It has proven expertise and knowledge on the ground. It has greatly advanced in the mapping and sequencing of the Sudanese political process. I appeal to your wisdom to support such structure and provide them through your summit and your high-level panel composed of 4 heads of state and government with the relevant direction, and to avoid the plethora of structure in charge of this crisis. Excellencies, we cannot call upon others to refrain from multiplying parallel initiatives while we give the counterproductive example of the same phenomenon of proliferation of structures and approaches. You can rely on the unwavering support of the AU for the relevant decision that we will take in all wisdom and determination. I wish you success to your deliberation. I thank you.
Thank you. United Nations Secretary General Representative, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Your Excellency, President Smer Omar Gilli, President of the Republic of Djibouti, current Chair of the Assembly of IGAD, I would like first of all to thank you most warmly for inviting me to attend this important summit on the situation in the Republic of the Sudan. I bring you greetings from Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, who wanted my presence here as the first manifestation of my taking over my new assignment as a testament of his very strong commitment to the Sudan and the one of the whole United Nations system in support of your efforts to find a solution to the crisis in the Sudan. The Secretary General commends IGAD leaders for their principled position to bring an end to this devastating conflict. I personally look forward to working closely with IGAD, with the African Union and all other partners, and in particular looking forward to interacting with Sudanese stakeholders in support of peacemaking efforts in a spirit of cooperation and complementarity. Your Excellencies, the heads of states, governments, and delegations, Excellencies, the ministers, distinguished IGAD Executive Secretary, distinguished African Union Chairperson, African Union Commission Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, the war in the Sudan continues to pose serious threats to the unity and territorial integrity of the Sudan, as well as to the security and stability of the whole region and beyond. Since the outbreak of the war, nearly 8 months ago, the Sudanese people have been subjected to unspeakable suffering. The war is having a terrible impact on the situation of the human rights in the country, particularly on women and children. I am appalled by reports of conflict-related sexual violence, including rape. The Sudan is now the country with the largest number of displaced people in the world. Considering the grave situation in the Sudan, there is an obvious, urgent need to redouble our collective efforts to prevent the country from descending into further chaos. Therefore, the immediate priority should be in finalizing a cessation of hostilities which could lead towards lasting peace in the country. A cessation of hostilities will save lives and enhance the protection of civilian population. A cessation of hostilities will facilitate the much-needed access to humanitarian assistance for the most vulnerable Sudanese people across the country. A cessation of hostilities will help the Sudan to begin restoring some stability and basic services. Cessation of hostilities will also pave the way for an inclusive political process to determine the future of the Sudan. I call on the leaders of the Sudan to demonstrate courage to make difficult but right decisions to end this war, taking into account the best interest of their people and their homeland. This effort begins by the signing and diligent implementation of a cessation of hostilities agreement and the Jeddah process. I call also on the civilian actors to come together, building on their different initiatives, including those put forward by women leaders and political coalitions. This is a time for unity for the sake of peace and stability and reconciliation in the Sudan. Excellencies, dear colleagues, allow me to strongly reiterate the message of the Secretary General of the United Nations that there is no military solution to this conflict. It is only through a negotiated political settlement that long-term peace and stability could be achieved in the Sudan. In that spirit, in that respect, I appeal to all countries to play a positive role in the Sudan and to avoid actions that would prolong the conflict. The task in front of all of us are quite challenging, but together we can help Sudan to reach lasting peace. Finally, the United Nations renews its solidarity with the people of the Sudan and supports strongly the aspirations to live in a country of freedom, peace, and justice. I wish this extraordinary summit every success, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. I now call the representative of the United States of America. You have the floor.
Your Excellencies, good afternoon. I bring greetings from President Biden and Secretary Blinken. We thank you for inviting the United States to address this key group of leaders and for the opportunity to discuss what we can do together to bring an end to the terrible conflict in Sudan. Thank you to our host, President Gele, as chair of IGAD, also to Dr. Workney and his team for pulling this summit together. I also want a special thanks to the Djiboutian people for their very warm welcome. All protocols observed. The United States commends IGAD on this initiative and for enabling us to partner together with the African Union and others in the international community to harmonize our efforts on Sudan. The war in Sudan is not only a crisis for the Sudanese, but also for the region and indeed our global community. The violence unleashed in April has resulted in displacement, rape, death, and destruction across Sudan, and it must stop. This extraordinary summit comes at an inflection point in the war when the trends on the ground are deeply worrying, threatening the territorial integrity of the country. Sudanese civilians are bearing the increasingly untenable costs of this needless conflict. The resulting humanitarian crisis is one of the worst in the world. Humanitarian responders are unable to reach communities in dire need because the belligerents have failed to uphold their commitments to facilitate their unhindered access to the vulnerable. In fact, we are all frustrated because the best efforts in Jeddah, and let me express appreciation to our Saudi Arabia and IGAD colleagues for our work together, both parties are failing to follow through on the confidence-building measures and enhanced humanitarian access they agreed to. That is why the Jeddah talks are currently stalled. The dire humanitarian situation demands urgent action. That is why we are here today. The parties must engage OCHA and remove obstacles to the delivery of assistance. Together with you, we are growing impatient, and we must trust this summit will reinforce the urgent need for not only temporary ceasefires, but a sustainable end to the conflict. We are well aware that the human rights situation in Sudan is bleak. The evidence of human rights abuses and violations that we have seen offers a haunting reminder of the genocide that began almost 20 years ago in Darfur. In fact, we have seen an explosion of targeted violence against some of the same communities, as well as abhorrent sexual violence targeting women and girls. This past Wednesday, Secretary Blinken issued a determination that both the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces have committed war crimes, and that the RSF and allied militias have also committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. Perpetrators must be held accountable. This determination demands that we, Sudan's neighbors and friends, redouble our efforts to end this senseless war, address the humanitarian and human rights crisis, and end decades of impunity. Since the war broke out, we have endeavored to work closely with IGAD and the African Union, beginning with Chairperson Faki's convening the Ministerial Special Session on Sudan on April 20th. And we have focused on 5 shared principles: that there is no acceptable military solution to the conflict, that there should be no external assistance to the parties, that we need to bring an immediate end to the fighting, that there needs to be, and it needs to be allowed for unhindered humanitarian access, and to develop a durable solution through a return to civilian governance. On the issue of external support, we are deeply concerned that support to the belligerents risks the partition of Sudan, the disruption of regional security, and the return of hardline Islamist rule. The provision of weapons to the belligerent parties must stop. We are doing our part to make clear that it is unacceptable and is only fueling further conflict. Our hope is that this summit will also make clear that it is unacceptable to continue to provide arms and support that further fuels the war. The cost of this outside involvement will be borne by all of us and inflict grievous damage on the people, economies, and stability in the region. Our battlefield assessment, based on intelligence, which we'll be happy to share and provide further details in private to you, has serious implications for the future of Sudan. In fact, it is not alarmist to say that the country is at risk of breaking apart, and that the SAF and RSF leaders will be responsible for the dissolution of Sudan. Both must understand that it is unacceptable and that it is time now to end this madness. We are here today to work together to bring an end to the conflict, to identify opportunities for immediate de-escalation and the urgent delivery of humanitarian assistance, and to deliver how we might most effectively support a Sudanese-owned, Sudanese-led civilian process that results in a democratic Sudan. The United States is proud to support IGAD's efforts to bring about a sustainable end to the conflict and the African Union's efforts to support this Sudanese-led civilian process that will determine the future of Sudan. Let us be clear, this is not up to the belligerents. And while civilians are not present here today, they should be reassured that this summit is in support of their efforts and their aspirations for a democratic Sudan at peace. Let me conclude by saying that the people of Sudan cannot wait a day longer for this war to end. The United States will remain engaged as a partner to you, our African brothers and sisters, to bring peace and to support African solutions to African problems. Together, we have demonstrated what can be achieved with the Pretoria Cessation of Hostilities Agreement on northern Ethiopia that silenced the guns a little bit over a year ago. It took the vision of one of your leaders, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, to end that horrific conflict. Now, Generals Burhan and Hemeti must stand up, take responsibility, and deliver peace for the Sudanese people and the region. The belligerent parties have shown that they are not fit to govern, and we must continue together to support the goals of the Sudanese revolution, in which women, men, and young people came together to express their desire for democracy. And that is why the United States is supporting civilian-led efforts for democracy. As underscored by the participants of the Expanded Mechanism Core Group meeting last week, the international community must be careful not to lead this effort. The future belongs to the civilians of Sudan, but to support it where we can. That is our role. Thus far, the Takadum effort is the most diverse and inclusive, and we encourage IGAD to engage with them in order to explain your efforts while continuing to encourage them to bring in more voices from across the country. We look forward to partnering with IGAD and the African Union to support Sudanese civilians and to come together to plan for a democratic summit. We wish you a very successful summit, and we extend our hand always in partnership to work together. Thank you. Merci. Shukran jazilan.
It's my turn now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, heads of states and governments, Excellency ministers and heads of delegation, Chairperson of the AU Commission, Secretary, Executive Secretary of IGAD, Personnel Envoy of UN Secretary General, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps and international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. On behalf of the government and the people of Djibouti, I extend a warm welcome to all of you Excellencies. I particularly welcome His Excellency Abdul Fattah Abdul Rahman al-Burhan, President of Sudan's Sovereign Council, among us today. I am grateful that despite the pressing demands of your respective offices, you have prioritized the 41st Extraordinary Assembly of Heads of States and Governments convened to address the situation in Sudan. This is a testament to our shared commitment to the principles that unites us as a regional force for peace, stability, and prosperity. I would also like to express my gratitude to the Executive Secretary, Dr. Warqane Gabayo, and his team for their efficiency in organizing this summit on such short notice. Esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the plight of the Sudanese people is not merely a statistic or a news headline. It is a stark and a deeply troubling reality that demands our attention and action. According to the United Nations, the ongoing conflict that has resulted in the displacement of over 2.5 million people and the death of estimated 300,000 individuals. Today, we stand together, our hearts heavy with the burden of the challenges faced by our Sudanese brethren. The escalating violence, which has seen a 64% increase in the past year, poses a grave threat to the very existence of Sudan and the stability of our region. Silencing the guns in Sudan is not a choice. It is an absolute necessity to prevent further suffering and the potential collapse of this great nation. It is our duty to actively engage in facilitating a comprehensive peace agreement that ensures an end to the fighting, allows for the delivery of humanitarian aid, and initiate a peaceful dialogue. The establishment and respect of a ceasefire is of utmost urgency. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that 9.3 million in Sudan are in need of humanitarian assistance. It is thus incumbent upon us to ensure that aid reach those who need it most, particularly in conflict-affected areas. Ceasefire is vital as it holds the key not only to alleviate the suffering and addressing the basic necessities like food, water, but it is also an essential prerequisite for dialogue. The suffering endured by our Sudanese brothers and sisters compels us to unite and act swiftly to alleviate their pain. We commend the efforts of Sudanese and international humanitarian actors in this regard. We also fully support the work of the AU expanded mechanism and the discussions facilitated by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي والسعادة السيدات والسادة، إن السودان الشقيق أحوج ما يكون اليوم إلى تكريس روح السلام وإرساء الأمن والاستقرار، وإن العالم يراقب اجتماعنا. ومن ثم فإنه يتعين على الهيئة الحكومية للتنمية الإيغاد أن تطلع بدورها على الوجه الصحيح باعتبارها الوسيط والميسر الرئيسي، إذ أننا مجهزون بشكل أفضل لفهم الأسباب الجذرية للصراع ومعالجتها. وفي هذا السياق فإنه من الممكن أن تكون قمة اليوم منارة للأمل أو رمزا لليأس، وإن الشعب السوداني الشقيق ينتظر لفتة تقنعه بأن مصيره يهم إخوانه على الصعيدين الإقليمي والقاري، ويهم كذلك قادته بالدرجة الأولى، ويجب ألا ندع هذه الآمال تتبدل. دعونا نسخر قوة توحيدنا لتعزيز الحوار والتفاهم والمصالحة، فعندما نكون معا نكون حتما لدينا القدرة على إحداث فرق وإعادة تشكيل مصير منطقتنا. أأمل أن يدرك مجلسنا الموقر خطورة هذه اللحظة التاريخية الفارقة، وأتمنى أن تكون القرارات التي تتخذها هنا بمثابة منارة أمل للأشخاص الذين تخدمهم. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي والسعادة، الحضور الكرام، إننا نجدد إدانتنا واستنكارنا الشديدين للعدوان الإسرائيلي الغاشم المتواصل على قطاع غزة والتهجير القسري للسكان والمدنيين العزل وتدمير البنية التحتية، ونطالب بوقف فوري لهذه الجريمة النكراء التي يشكل استمرارها وصمة هامة، وصمة عار على جبين المجتمع الدولي، وإزاء المجازر الإسرائيلية التي تخطت كل الحدود والصمت الدولي حيالها، فإننا نؤمن بحتمية إنصار المقاومة الفلسطينية الباسلة. وفي هذا الصدد فإننا نعيد التأكيد على دعمنا المطلق ومساندتنا الكاملة لنضال الشعب الفلسطيني الشقيق حتى يستعيد حقوقه المغتصبة ويقيم دولته المستقلة على حدود 4 يونيو 67 وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية. ختاما نتمنى لاجتماعنا التوفيق والسداد، وأشكركم على حسن إصغائكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So we came to an end to our opening session. We thank you. Now we shall have some break and proceed to the closed session. I thank you.